This is the Lekker Rugby Pod, only on Megaphone Rugby.
Welcome back to the Lekker Rugby Pod. Harry, your absence has been noted. The people have been clamoring for your words of wisdom, looking for the Harry fix, and here you are. Welcome back, man.
Who said brew, man? I'm back. Listen, what people don't know is before we start, we have a thing we do to make the camera be honest, and it's always been from time immemorial, from the genesis of this pod, it's been bloody, bloody, blah, blah. And when MVS says that, then we capture him. And today, exclusive announcement, we went 3-2-1. And it was funny because I think you just said that about 5-10 seconds ago. And I thought, why didn't I realize that too? Because I have to say bloody blah, blah.
If you make up your own words, man.
I'm so happy right now. We just do 3-2-1. That's beautiful. No, listen, it's rugby has a big hold on us all, and we believe in it. It's a passion. It's somewhat of a religion, as the Orthodox religions have sort of sometimes shrunk recently. We cling to a thing that's tribal and that we belong to. And I think also it's good sometimes to take a step away. Sometimes you can get almost suffocated by the amount of rugby that's on, and I tend to get that way because I like to see everything. But yeah, this weekend was different. It was much more of an actual voyage to Chicago, which we'll get into later, I know, to see Soldier Field, to see All Blacks in Ireland, and spend a wonderful, wonderful weekend with Mrs. Jones. We'll leave it there and just say that's sometimes in life, you've got to take a step back. So I know everyone was clamoring and saying, but what happened? What's Harry's viewpoint? Here we are, better late than never.
Well, let's use this opportunity to say thank you to you, Griffin, who stepped in on very short notice on Saturday afternoon to do an instant reaction for us. He had to watch 3 games at once, and people were calling me out for that. And I want to have a bit of a rant here. You know what? Yes, Rassie is a very good coach. Yes, Rassie is very wise and everything, but no one's omniscient. So it doesn't mean because you're good, you're immune to criticism. And what I like about you, specifically you, Griffin, is he looks at things from a different point of view. He's not a Springbok fanatic like we are. So sometimes it's good to hear a different point of view. And just because it's different to what you're thinking, what your opinion is, doesn't make him necessarily a bad guy. And some of the language that I've seen in those comments, I will not tolerate. I must say it right now. I'm going to delete those comments in future.
I think we are a better channel when we have texture of viewpoint, of age, true diversity. I'm not talking about artificial forms of it. And Hugh brings that really welcome voice. He treats numbers differently because I think he comes from more of a scientific background, and he can spot trends that maybe the rest of us don't see. Andre Pretorius brings his incredible breakdown of moments, and we'll get into that with the Boks because I saw a shape that I cannot wait to talk to Andre about, what I'll call a staggered attack and a staggered defense, where people shoot off different angles. And Hugh is one of those guys who can see those things too. Watching a game with him in London recently, I was fascinated by what he was looking for. And I think this weekend I was next to Tim Cocker, and we spent the 3 of us actually spent the entire game talking to each other, including a very delightful exchange where Tim said, okay, Harry and Mrs. Jones, who's going to be the man of the match today? And we had to say one person. Tim said Ryan Baird. I said, who the fuck knows who I said? He wasn't the man of the match. Mrs. Jones goes, Crowley? Who's Crowley? And takes Jack Crowley. And deep into the match, Tim is going, I cannot believe that Jack Crowley is so much closer to being the man of the match than the 2 guys we picked. I Will Jordan. And there's fascinating ways to watch rugby. We hope, and you and I hope, that we're bringing unique perspectives, sometimes academic, sometimes statistical, sometimes with John Cardinelli looking at very unique ways of age vintaging the Boks to get there. And they always have holes. We saw Oxenshire go down, but there's ways to handle it. And I think it's great. On the abuse factor, we had an entire episode about that once, which is, why do we even do this? And I think if you can just take a step back, I'm not talking to anyone in particular, but take a step back and say, isn't life more fun in rugby or every sport now because of non-traditional, spot on guys like Tim Cocker, who can come on and actually say different things. We're better for it. So don't run us out of town with being too harsh. We're not going to, but it's one more reason for someone to pick up their tools and say, I don't really need this. And I hope we can do better. Having met you in person, there's not a nicer person. He's such a nice guy, and you should be ashamed if you're taking shots at him.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with people differing, having different opinions. I have a problem with the way they're expressing it. Swear words, and calling him names, and that to me is uncalled for. And it's actually part of our channel rules. If you do that kind of thing, you're going to be banned. I'm sorry, I know this is a bit of a rant and it's unexpected. I didn't warn you about this, but I've been thinking about it for 2 days straight now. And the more I think about it, the angrier I get. So anyway, let's move on. Talking about the Springboks quickly, I know you were in the air somewhere on the way to Chicago or something. Didn't watch too much of that game. I suppose you watched a bit of it in the meantime. Just talk to me about briefly what you thought. Was it a success? Was it a mistake playing ox and chair? And is Sasha Feinberg-Mngomezulu becoming a windgat?
Sasha, he's so fine. Mngomezulu. He is so fine. It's almost like someone created a human in the lab. How can you be that perfectly blended, that sort of cappuccino, male matinee movie star, had that incredible proportionality. I was at Captain's Run in London, and he whips off his shirt in the freezing rain to put another shirt, and you're like, do you have any body fat on that frame? That's ridiculous. Smiling, happy, well-spoken, can boot the ball a mile with either foot. Listen, if you are that guy and you're not a little bit arrogant and you're not a little bit confident and you're that age, I don't know who you are. Every one of us would be the same. One thing I learned in life is if you put people in exactly the same shoes and the same geography, if you swap this guy on this side of the Caspian Sea, put him on the other side of the sea, he's spouting, exactly what people in Azerbaijan are saying, not the ones who are saying it in Russia. So we are prisoners to geography, biology. Sasha's just unique. He's a wonderful outgrowth of a collision of so many parts of South Africa, of Africa as a whole. He's a connection between North and Southern hemispheres. He's such a team man. Behind the scenes, I'll just swear that I saw him do things that were not for the camera because there was no camera. They were not for anyone else's, Instagram because there was no phones out. He was just schlepping bottles of water in the rain when all the other players had gone in, and he was doing that to help the actual unnamed, unknown assistants. So putting that to the side, I get what people are saying about the shape of play, though, because there are some players like Antoine Dupont that get good, and then they get really good, and they get so good that they kind of stifle the other players on their team, and there's less oxygen for them. So I think the challenge, and I think Tony Brown's the perfect teacher for this on how to do this, is do those things, do that play where he knifed through and just with sheer speed, vision, and hip swerve went where no one has a right to go. And if he had given that ball to someone else, it wouldn't have been a try. That we would not have scored. So you have to be able to keep the insane self-belief, but then you also have to find those moments where, a la Willie LaRue or something, you find the perfect. That's what he has to work on. Is the touch on some of those. But I just think it's bizarre that people are getting wound up about it. It smacks a lot of envy, that dreaded E word that will distort you and make you do silly things. If you don't realize we're watching the presence of greatness burgeoning and forming before our eyes, potential to go all the way to be better than Dan Carter, got more skills, he's quicker, he's rangier. I believe he has the kind of peripheral vision that doesn't exist except in elite athletes. He's got the hops, he's got the leap, he's got ambidextrous feet. I mean, it's just the whole package. And then he looks like he's a movie star. So I mean, like, come on, let's just enjoy it. As far as Rossi and his ability to work with a guy who's a lot like him, except more athletically talented, Rossi was Venkat. He freely admits it. He speaks often about how he wouldn't pick himself because he thought his shit didn't stink. I think that's great. I think he's around people that really understand him. I watch a lot on try scoring celebrations. How far Sasha will go to run and jump on someone. How excited he is for Wilco Low to score one of the great prop tries. Um,
Yeah.
and that tells me a lot about Sasha's perception of team and how he thinks of team. Yeah, he's the kind. So I think we're blessed. And the other part is I think it's difficult to do anything with this game, MV. I think it's difficult to make sense of a
Mm.
game where you have a route. And I think the only thing to do with it is sort of, I guess you could just take me through what parts of it you thought I thought was significant, but I wouldn't want anyone to get too excited about it, and I also wouldn't want anyone to get too down about individual players not doing well.
Yeah. First thing I want to talk to you about is when Marnie came on, we scored more tries. And it's not to say that it's better than Sasha. It's not what I'm saying at all. It means that we have two fantastic fly-offs who bring different skills and different whatevers to this match or to this team, and then simply allowing us to switch to a higher gear. Marnie, to me, seems to have taken a step up since he's got that bogey off his back about the place kicking. That's the first thing. And the next thing I want to talk to you about is how deep in trouble are we on Lucette?
Okay, yeah. So games always go that way, especially if they're played in the box style. Is you're going to score more tries in the end. You have to wear down the team first, your opponent. All season long, there's been a spurt of tries at the end. So if it had been Sasha who was playing 10 during that period of time, same result. If it had been Mani coming in first, would have been the same result. Hard to score tries against an untired, still cohesive defense that hasn't got its scrubs on. Japan's bench is not nearly as good as the Bok bench. So all that's just sort of, I think, baked into the cake. I'm still happy for Mani, but I wouldn't, yeah, it's hard to draw much conclusion from that. The other thing is, um, we're never really in a prop crisis because we have the most props, the best props in the world right now. But it is somewhat annoying when we put one of the truly World 15 or World 23 players into a game and we spend valuable minutes that we know for sure could be used on someone else. In quiet moments when the camera's not around, I'm sure the Buck coaches would probably admit that they got that one wrong. They were probably basing that on tendon and ligament health for Ox. He might have tested out so well. When I looked at the minutes for the whole season, he didn't look overplayed. But rugby's a funny game, and so it does look to me like, he's gone for this whole series. What I will say also is that means he comes back in 2026 better. We've seen it with so many players that need a break. So as long as the injury is not devastating, there's a part of me that thinks, okay, good. Let's see. All the teams have this. If you go down the list of the French or the Irish or the All Blacks, there's significant players that are out right now. So it's great to test strength, depth, and one thing that is true is the depth issue is the Boks' greatest strength. There's no way any team comes close. The French almost, but not quite. They're not quite as deep at lock. I do think they struggle a little bit when they have certain players out in the loose forwards. And I don't think their midfield is as good as ours. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, but one of the things you said about Ireland, and we'll talk about this now, is when the bench came on, there was a significant difference between the All Black bench and the Ireland bench, for example. That's where the game went away from Ireland. And I've got a feeling the loose sets we've got left, apart from Gerard Steenekamp now, there's a significant gap between Boan Venter and Ox and Che, for example, or Thomas Atoy at loose set and Ox and Che. So do you play Gerard, for example, in the starting lineup against France? I mean, this is the biggest game of the year, apart from the Eden Park one, which we didn't win. And I have this kind of a setback. And I want to tie this into the questions, why did Rassie postpone his team? He initially moved it forward to Monday, and then now he's moved it out to Thursday, which is unusual. It seems to me to be an indication maybe of something creaking somewhere.
So it almost always has more than one reason. A change in the announcement of when you're going to do the team announcement. The two most likely suspects in terms of category will be one, players who are almost fit and are coming back, and we don't want to go early and then stall out. There's a mantra that you have to be able to train on certain days, but it's not really true. You can get on and play even if you haven't trained on that day. You just got to be bloody close. You got to be 99% and doing really well in the gym, and if you're an experienced player, then they go, you know how to play with a recovered injury. Peter Steph the toy. How many times has Peter Steph come back from something and just been brilliant? So many times. So he knows how to play it. So that's the one category. The second one is to play mind games. To play mind games with media, to play mind games with the opponent. If there's one team that's weak-minded but strong-bodied, one team that's got the ammunition, the tanks, the artillery, but a little bit of a questionable heart. If there's one team that's still way too into the quarterfinal loss 2 years ago, and sometimes when you want something too much, you mess yourself up. It's the French. That's who I'd play games with on the question of 7-1, of 6-2, of 5-3, or 4-4, or 5.5, 3, all that stuff. I like that. I think that's what's happening here. With a bit of niggle on the way back, almost back. An example of a niggle that we want to wait on would be, say, Siakulisi. It's like, what if he's got something we don't know about?
Oh.
And if we don't name him, it changes two things, both captaincy as well as position.
Right. On the subject of the French, we're going to be doing a special Lekker Rugby pod on Thursday. We'll publish it on Friday with Hugh Griffin. He follows French rugby very closely, knows those players. So he knows how they've been doing in the top 40. It's important because they haven't played as a team since the Six Nations. And the team they sent to New Zealand was a B team. So this is their first game back. And it's important to know how they were doing in the top 14, what the form is like. Dupont not being there, Ramos maybe not being there. I think he's got family leave or something like that. So looking forward to that one. I'm excited to hear what you says. But let's move on to your Chicago adventure. I'm excited to hear what happened there. Because on TV, it looked like a bit of a damn squib. Lots of people, but no atmosphere? Or was it just, again, a matter of production?
Isn't that strange? It's both, actually. So I've been to a lot of cities and a lot of stadia recently. And so I have a nice comparison point. And there's no doubt that if that had been an NFL game I think there was an NFL game the very next day between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Chicago Bears, that the place would have been rocking. But it's weird how sports that even have certain similarities have to be produced differently on TV. And it's even true live. So for sure, there's sort of three stages to that. First, the walk up. So let's say you go into Twickenham. You're going to walk through row houses of boerewors, throewors, biltong. You're going to have these stands sitting around where people are, making fresh meat slathered on bread and mustard and slot chips and sauce. You're going to have smoke everywhere from fires and from people smoking. You're going to have people standing a lot. You're going to have people walking in droves, wedged into these small streets. You're going to look at, Lancashire meats. You're going to look at Lake District, pork loins. You're going to have all this kind of smell and sights outside Twickenham. You're going to see a big statue. Then you're going to see another one, another one, another one. As you walk in, you're going to feel yourself transported into the legacy of history of rugby. You'll remember that it's a cabbage patch and the longest contiguously played elite rugby field in the world. So by the time you're in, you're already pumped, you're primed, you are massaged into your chair by rugby's values. At Chicago Field, you have disparate groups. There's no slop chips waiting for you on the way. It's a city of broad shoulders. It's got railroads made it. It was the railroads that brought the live cattle in from Kansas, from Texas, slaughterhouses that brought the Slavs, the Bohemians, the Croats, the Mexicans to work there, and they never left. It's busy. It's got a giant sea next to it that's a Lake Michigan, that's inaccessible. No one swims in it. It's big and bold. It's loud, but it's not rugby. It doesn't have any roots in rugby. Are there Chicago Hounds fans? Of course, but they're like had their favorite team abroad, and that's their real team. Everyone from New Zealand that was at the match who wasn't paid to be there were just people living in the U.S. who moved to the U.S. as a New Zealander. Their kids are not New Zealanders. They barely have any connection with Quinn Tupaya. They wouldn't know him. They would know the Barretts. So even the Kiwi fans don't know their own team. And they are always the most demure of fans anyway. So they sat and politely clapped or grumbled or grimaced. They kind of grumble even when they win. The other side, the Irish, they did come for the big crack. They were, I don't know, probably 5-1 ratio, maybe 6-1 Irish. A lot of those people did come from the US, and not just from Chicago. They might have come from Atlanta. They might have come from Denver. But there was also a huge traveling contingent who came for 4 days. A lot of them went up and down the rivers, did the tours. They were in the bars every time we were around, morning or night. They were eating, they were having a good time. The fact that they lost seemed immaterial. They were just on a trip. It didn't have the pain of losing at home. It was a home game without a home. It was a rugby match without a country. And it was interesting. And there were 62,149 people there or something. But sitting there, Tim, Mrs. Jones, and I just kind of went, why is it so quiet? And then we tried to ponder that. Well, first of all, you're in the press box. There's certain kind of press boxes, and especially in Chicago, which is cold as hell in the winter, they have you kind of airproof, soundproofed. So we had the top windows open to get some breeze in there, and it still was quieted, the sound. So then I thought, well, maybe it's just that. So I stick my head through the window and kind of get that. Fields of Athenry, still strangely quiet. There's no way that, let's say, 40,000 Irishmen singing the Fields of Athenry should sound majestic. And then we had the feed of the TV, and we realized all the sounds were muted. And then we started realizing that, the production, it's a game. And in a way, it's like, okay, the game is good, but then it's good. Not really. Like even the quarterfinal Box French, if it was badly produced, it's still a good game, but I'm not sure it shows as well. Just like the COVID Lions tour didn't show well because it turns out you put 80,000 fans and Mornay makes that kick. It's insane. And if they're not there, it's not. So Soldier Field had the people, but it lacked the production values of when you go low for a scrum and you shoot that sort of iconic view of the together. It lacked the ability to know where on the angle you want to see Artie Savea score. It lacked the knowledge of high ball play. It's not just a punt like in American football where you lost the ball, you failed, punt it, fair catch, ho hum. So the DJ would have absolutely fucking done your head in, Mvia, because he represented everything you hate, which is tone deafness, reducing the ability to understand what's going on, drowning out the ref at some point. Inside the stadium, we didn't have an ability to know whether the red card was a red 20 orange or if it was a red. We didn't have the ability to know what they were even talking about. We didn't even know it was Ty Bird for a while. We didn't know what the fuss was about because the big screen didn't show it. The haka, it turns out, is a kind of a podunk thing. It just looks like a pile of guys down there wiggling their arses. And you have to have a microphone stuck right in there. You've got to have specific filming values for that to work and look awesome and scary. Otherwise, it just looks a bit high schoolish. And yeah. So just in general, I would say, that was true. Then on top of that, you have a refereeing style with the Frenchman that was so perfunctory and pedantic, where every single nuance, if I just tugged my shorts up, penalty, and it made everyone mystified. And so I think there were all those ingredients, and yet it was still a really good day. And I was trying to think about why. The food is brilliant. Once you get into Soldier Field, it's next level. I mean, you cannot believe the amount of terrible, killing you kind of food that you can suck down your gullet. The beer, the types of beer, the scenery from every single concourse. You're looking at the lake, the skyscrapers. They've interwoven the old Soldier Field with this new, and it's incredible how they made that work. It's something Loftus needs to go. Whoever's running Loftus and does the redo, just go there and study that. to move people in and out, to have a beer, take a piss, move out, move in, see, and enjoy yourself. It's remarkable. So everyone really did have fun, I think, but the game didn't seem as important. The game itself, I thought, was very interesting because I liked the way the All Blacks played. I could see that they've grown through the year. Ireland is sort of stagnating through the year. The Wallabies, as you know, are falling off the cliff because they have no depth and they've been worked out, and England's rising. So you just looked at it from that point of view and you said, welcome back, All Blacks. That was a hell of a beating you took in Wellington, but you look like a team that could go 11 wins and 2 losses. In fact, I'll say it right here. The All Blacks will go 11 wins and 2 losses and end the season either one ahead on the win-loss than the Boks, but still ranked behind, but probably right there. And the reports of their demise will be greatly exaggerated in retrospect, which is often the case with the All Blacks.
yeah, as we know. Just before we move on to the game itself, I just want to talk about the World Cup is in the USA in 2031, and this is sort of a repetition. What's the word? What's the word?
It's the word it's the word that Jake White needed from you in Afrikaans.
Yeah, no, I can't remember it in English. Can you believe it? I'm not even going to take this out.
What's it in Afrikaans again?
Kleedrepetisie. Kleedrepetisie. Yeah. Kleedrepetisie.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, so basically it is that, and you can isolate about 7 points to do. Number one, you've got to have your sync up with your TMO bunker big screen version. That's easy. American sports does that. I don't know why there was even a problem there. Number two, I suspect that there was, in the lead up to this game, somebody thought somebody else was doing something, and I think IRFU was like, oh, that's done by the locals, right? And the locals were thinking, well, someone has to direct me. I've maybe my whole career has been about American football. Now you're saying do scrums. What's a scrum? How do I make it look good?
Show me the TMO footage. What TMO footage? Yeah.
Number two is the turf itself, this field. I mean, you've got a lot of time to get it ready. And I know it was the very next day was going to be Bears Bengals, but there's a way for a rugby pitch to look like a rugby pitch. And the minute it doesn't look like that, it affects our brain. I'm not even sure why, aesthetically. Next thing is you have to have an ability to know how a crowd works live and rev them up. And it seemed like it was like an NBA style, which is like nothing is real unless it's action. So it makes everything with rugby always has some downtime. It makes that seem bad. And the minute you go down that road, you're like, ADHD kid wanting adrenaline, and it's like boring. Oh, okay, something happened. Not the right way to sell rugby. Rugby has to be sold in its reload, in its analytics. Look what just happened. It's stately. There are times where you walk somewhere, it's okay. When you lead that and you understand that. I think the idea that they marketed kind of weird. It was the rematch. But then when you went for the game, there was no footage of the first match. Like, if you were selling a boxing match and it was the sequel, it was the second, it was the revenge, you would milk the hell out of that.
Rumbled in the Jungle, remember?
Yeah, you would have famous people from Ireland on the pitch early. You'd have a Dan Carter, with Brian O'Driscoll bantering back and forth. You would welcome the crowd into the stakes. Otherwise, it just seems like a friendly where everyone's on a crack, on a little bit of a voyage over to the US to have some fun. And make no mistake, even though they lost, the Irish had a lot of fun. It was a 3:00 game, so by the time it was over, it was 5:00. There was so much time to get in trouble. I saw 2 Irish kids walking, stumbling, not wearing enough clothing. They were freezing, and they had lost the battle with the brew tap. And so they were going down this road, and one of them thought it was funny, jump, and then screaming at the top of his lungs, jump into a police golf cart with the policeman sitting there, Chicago's finest, dressed in all black. So Irish guy, all green, jumps in there and just screams in his face, "Let's run, let's get out of here." And that cop rose up, picked him up, put him in the air, hurled him. When he landed and stood up, the cop was there to punch him about as hard as a person could punch in the middle of his back with a kidneys. and just stood over him and said, "Do you want to go to jail tonight?" I was like,
Yes.
that guy just went. He went paler than an Irishman already is, and it was pretty funny. And we were actually walking around them on the way out, and you could just tell that they were chastened. I thought that exemplified the game. The Irish came in, they had some strong moments. I think they kind of got ahead of themselves. They started singing Fields of Athenry, or 13-7 up. The game was sort of in their grasp. And then they kind of jumped into a golf cart with a cop and shot it in his face. And then for the next 20 minutes, they regretted, I regret. It looked like if they kept playing about 10 more minutes, it would have been an actual pasting.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's a very good analogy. I can actually quite see that. Yeah, I actually had to go to bed because I couldn't keep my eyes open. It was a long day. And, it's funny when you didn't have a horse in the race. Okay, I have to watch this game because I have to talk to Harry about it. And no, stuff that. I'll watch the highlights. But it's also indicative of there was no excitement to this game. And normally, All Blacks play anybody else, I'll watch it. But I just couldn't get worked up about it. And so let's talk about the Soldiers Field Ghosts have been late to rest. Some of the guys on X are saying the All Blacks have now vindicated themselves and everything else. You said that they've made a comeback. They had a big pasting at Wellington, and they've come back. They fought back. Some of those players looked like they're in good form the way they should have looked earlier in the season. Your overall impression of the All Blacks?
Guys like Caleb Clark, real handful when he's on. You saw the power and the punch of some of the running, the carries, the slickness. And listen, they lost 2 Barretts. They were almost on the verge of having a great trivia question. What is the game in which all 3 Barretts went off hurt? So when you lose that much and you still win going away, what you can say is that in the individual rivalry between Ireland and New Zealand, that's shifted back. It's all the way back. That's 3 in a row, but handily. That's taking care of business in quarterfinal. That's hammering them in Dublin a year ago, and then now in Chicago, being clearly in control of that match as it went down the stretch. That's good. It also means that the top 2 is the top 2 again. It's really the Boks and the All Blacks. The race now for 3, 4, 5 has England in it. England is putting their nose ahead right when that selection draw is happening. And don't be surprised if it ends up, November ends up with South Africa, New Zealand, and then England. Maybe the French and Ireland, the ones slipping down, because they're no sure thing now against teams like Australia, if they play them. I think they do. And so I think there's something in Ireland right now. And I heard it from so many people, because the Irish are great analyzers of defeat. They're comfortable with defeat. They know it very well. Their entire history has been a history of being invaded and impoverished. And, this is a very small period of time where the Irish are on top. A rugby fan in Ireland has learned a long time ago to deal with defeat. But one thing they'll do, and we saw it as we went through the pubs and kind of over here, it was deep understanding and analytics of why these diamond-shaped pods are not working. So I backtrack to the Boks. To me, the Boks are doing split-level shooting arrangements. So instead of having a solid line where it's all about, can I touch your hand if you extended and touch my hand, sort of like that, except you're ahead of me by about 2 or 3 meters. And if we touch diagonally, we get kind of close, but not there. Very hard to weave your way through because you get hit from the side and you get teed off on really hard by the Bok defense. That's to me the difference. The Nienaber defense is still straight with shooters. And the shooters typically come from 9 and 13, right here behind the ruck. And then Jesse Creel or Kanan Moody comes and hits you. With wings biting in, but then the 12 folding around. And from above, you'd still see, generally speaking, a shape that looks like a normal rugby defense that comes up. It just comes up with a few edges. Now I see that we're arranged almost like checkers, like a board of checkers. And so everything's going diagonal, but there's always a space between, and it ends up being 2 lines. And those 2 lines are very difficult to go against. And then when the ball flips around and we have the ball, it's still like that. So instead of having pods that are clump, 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 it looks to me that it's like a checkers board. I'm going to talk to Andre about this and see if I'm on crack.
Our French.
Maybe I had too much beer, but it looks to me like that's what it is. And it's interesting because once again, it's Team South Africa getting ahead of the opposition and saying, you think you're preparing for this, and I will show you that. Ireland has been too stuck too long in the loop around. Jack Crowley catches, he feeds, he sprints behind and looks for the give off the edge. It's been worked out. You saw the All Blacks, Quinton Tupaya, just going, thank you, brother. I'm going to destroy your ribs. And it was just like a tough boy Jack doing it. Mrs. Joseph's pick for man of the match. If you look at the All Blacks, I don't see much change in there, but I see they're doing everything a little bit better. The line-out's a bit better. The kick chase, a bit better. Kick fielding, not good still. They were not able to keep Jamie Osborne and is it Tommy O'Brien. They could not keep them out of the air, and they weren't winning the aerial battle. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Other thing I'll just give you of watching the game live was how Razor Robertson is a bit like Rassie. I think he's watched Rassie and he's trying to copy him. So in warm-ups, he was doing the Rassie walkout, act cool, look around, check it out, but then he spies. And he's looking at a warm-up where how could you get much from that, right? I don't know how you could look at that and say, looks like Kalen Doris is fit. He's doing what are you getting from that really? But I love it. I love it when we are so far into the All Blacks' head that now the All Blacks coach is copying ours, standing right there in the middle of the field and doing the Rassie. So thank you, Razor, for showing who is the greatest coach by imitating him.
Imitation is a serious form of flattery. There we go. My English has returned miraculously.
I actually love that moment because I remember that so clearly that Jake White turned to you, but it was a question from someone else, not you.
Yeah.
And of all the Afrikaans speakers in the room that he picked, he was like, Via, what is dress rehearsal?
Yeah. I remember it was a good one. All right. Talking about Ireland quickly, just in closing, an aging squad. They've not renewed at all. You've talked about 3 in a row now. They lost since the quarterfinal. No innovation. Jack Crowley and Sam Prendergast not stepping into the Johnny Sexton shoes to any degree. Are they in trouble?
Not if we define it as could they settle in around the 4 to 5 range for a bit more and get knocked out. Maybe get to semifinals, but still get knocked out. I think it's more likely they still get knocked out in the quarterfinal though, because there is a subsiding of that. Jack's actually good. I think Jack's fine. Sam has got some serious confidence problems now. So he's not a punch finisher like Damien McKenzie can be for the All Blacks or any number of people for the Boks, depending on whether Sasha's at 15 or Willemse. You can pull a rabbit out of a hat and say, Mani, go do something crazy for 25 minutes. The Irish don't have that at 9, 10, 15 game manager. Some of that's from injury, like Hugo Keenan being out's a big thing for them. But I'd also think they're a bit slow just in general. James Lowe is like a truck now. He's not a real wing looking. He's just a flank who can kick. I think it's a bit, and I think Jamison Gibson Park being noticeably bested by Cam Roygaard, who has the sweetest delivery of a ball I've just in the whole game today in the world. If I'm going to just sit there and watch 100 passes in practice, I'm watching Cam Roygaard. He finishes exactly where he's going. Every young player who wants to know how to pass a ball, watch Cam Roygaard. He starts low and stays low, so he enters his passing while he's still crouched. When it's right here, he's still in a crouch. When he lets it go, he finally comes out a little bit, but not too much. He stays down, like all the great ones. Farid Priya stayed down. And then he finishes, like Ernie Els would say, you finish in golf where your elbow goes. In a scrum off, it's where your hands go. And he artificially creates that. What happens is even 2% more accurate from 9 to 10 is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you've given your guy, you've given Don Barrett just so much room
Can I
because
say
he has that
something?
extra step.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm editing the Confessions series too, as you know. That pass from 9 to 10 is hospital or heaven. And I'm quoting you.
There
There
you
you go.
go.
Yeah.
There's lots of gems in there. And listen, rugby is so funny because watching that game at 13-7, talking to Murray Kinsella from the Irish Times, who was there. He's such a great in-game reporter, Jamie Wall. So I just posed it to Murray and then Jamie opposing, so New Zealand and
Mm.
Ireland, and they both got it wrong, like as I did about what would happen next, So what will it look like? And it was just different. So still good for a rugby aficionado to be there and watch that. Weird because you wasted 62,000 people. And for the World Cup, you will have actually traveling fan contingents. So you won't have trouble on the atmosphere. Like if you put 30,000 Argentina fans in Miami in the stadium, it's going to be bedlam. It's going to be super fun. So I wouldn't get anyone too worried about. This was a traveling weirdness where you have the world's quietest taciturn fans, the Kiwis, who live in America and their kids don't know anything, don't know how to do, they don't know the people. And then you have the Irish people coming over, and it just doesn't feel like they cared whether they won or lost as much as if they were at home. And
Mm.
the rematch not being sold as a proper marketing tool. But I would say the Stadia, a place like Soldier Field is magnificent with the huge, one of the largest freshwater lakes behind, incredible skyscrapers, the food delivery. I think we learned from 2019 in a country that is not crazy about rugby, Japan. I think like most people in Japan are not really into it, but the delivery system, the stadium, the food, it can still create. But you've got to nail the production. You've got to have a way to tell the story, like the Confessions, as people will see. You've actually, paid attention to what it's supposed to look like, and we're all affected by that. We all like things that look better, and I think rugby is a particularly difficult game to show. So I was actually thinking, from what I just said, and then I was watching another game this weekend, a catch up. I think it was England, and the electricity of a well-produced game at a beautiful stadium where it's cracking and you have proper rivals. It looks easy, but then you see, no, actually what they're doing is they're really clever on the angles. You can feel where the offsides line is. That's actually really important.
Yeah.
If you're always guessing because it's a weird angle, which wouldn't
Yeah.
matter in American football, there's no offsides line. So, it's cool. You got to have a really tough top team of photographers. I would like to see that done and ruled and sort of dominated by South African media people. And my goal, and I've been talking to Mats about this, is I think the studio people that welcome and produce and talk to the nation of US about rugby must be South African. They must be Trevor Noah types. They must be, people who have a straddle, who understand both the vibe, the history. It's better translated by South Africans than English, Irish. It's better. And I think if we can just get, enough people like a Matt Pierce in there, who I think he said he's the Jim Nance. He could be the Jim Nance of rugby. You see in the Masters coverage. That's great. And I think there's a way to rescue this. I think people shouldn't say we're going to pull it out of the US. The money's there. The incredibly big tickets are there. World Cups feed the whole game for 4 years. It's like a farmer. You have to make the big haul. You're not making any money, no money. You're in drought, and then suddenly it all comes in. You've got to break the bank. So I support that, but it has to be done in a much smarter way, probably regional. And you have to really focus on educating the crowd as to what they're seeing.
Mm.
They shouldn't be in there guessing. We didn't know what was going on. We were in the press box and didn't know what were going on.
Yeah, I know, but it's even the same here to a degree. Remember, I said to you before, even at Loftus, I sit in the press box next to TV, and you still don't have an idea what's going on. It's difficult to hear, like that thing that you had with you Griffin had with the ref mic. That's important, I think. Anyway, this was a
Right.
dress rehearsal. Let's call it what it was. I tested some things and see what worked and what didn't work. And like you said, it's important. For example, the Stormers pitching up in Nelspruit to play against the Bulls, for argument's sake. Maybe Nelspruit's not a good example in Springs. with no hype or anything about it. Nobody, blowing up the rivalry and the history and all that's traditions and stuff. It's gonna fizzle out. That's what they have to focus on. There's a story to be told. And like you just said with the confessions as well, there's a story to be told. And you have to just find it. Yeah, I agree with you. All right, just lastly, like I said, we're gonna talk to you, Griffin, on Friday. We'll publish on Friday. Nice little preview so we understand what the French are up to. And then next week, Andre is going to do a proper analysis for us about the Springboks with France. You sitting on that. It's going to be lekker. I've given him some homework, so that's looking forward to that. Thanks, Harry. I'm happy you made it back.
Yeah, I cannot wait for all that. What you've just gone through, there's nowhere else in rugby that can match up to that. So that's a self-plug. I'm just telling you, there's no one out there that can bring the breadth of what Andre and Hugh and John and you and I can bring at this moment. And I'm also very thankful. We've talked cross about how people act. For the most part, you guys are incredible. I look forward to reading the comments. There's so many friendly people and also just funny people from all over the world.
I agree. Like I said, it's not you can differ as much as you want to. Just be civil. That's all I'm asking. Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Harry, man. I enjoyed it. It was lekker talking again.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod, only on Megaphone Rugby.